but guys who call themselves a king who aren't really embodying king, I've got a problem with that, you know? And so I love that you flipped it. And I don't know if this had anything to do with your decision, but that you flipped it to father, first of all, because ain't no kings in 2021.
Then you have the father, and this one you'll notice is a little different than the king, warrior, magician, lover. I basically added this one in, and it adjusted the system a little. And the reason I did that is because there's the king, which is the part that has to do with the realm, the security of your kingdom, the harmony of things. But it also had to do with being a father, with I can't remember the term, but it basically means being a father. And I thought it was important to separate that because our world really needs caring caregivers and people that can be there for their children, and seeing that as an important part of our psyche. But also, the father isn't just about kids. It's about how do we stand up for our community? How are we a role of support? We mentors, we caregivers.
Yeah, I like that. I'm just going to pause you there for a second because I'm going to confess something. I have a particular, and I'm calling myself out on it now. I have had a particular judgment about people taking these archetype, especially the archetype of king, and then just calling themselves king and calling everyone else king and saying, yo, what's up, king? Yo, king this, king that. And it's not that I love guys taking that and running with it and aiming for it and striving to be that. But guys who call themselves a king who aren't really embodying king, I've got a problem with that, you know? And so I love that you flipped it. And I don't know if this had anything to do with your decision, but that you flipped it to father, first of all, because ain't no kings in 2021 right now, right? I mean, there are maybe still people that call themselves king, but we live in a world of fathers right now, right? And the father really is exactly what you said. So I like it because it's so much more tangible. It's real. And I tell you what, I'd rather have a whole bunch of guys walking around working on their father archetype than their king archetype any day, because there's such a void in fathering in the world right now. So
and the power of a masculine connection to nurturing, which has a different feel to it than a feminine connection to nurturing. And really diving into that is such a powerful place. So to kind of go on that concept, that was one thing that I loved the work of Robert Moore and King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. But there was a lot of comments with people who study more of the Jungian psychology that supported that work, where I've heard a lot of people get annoyed with the concept of the king within the Force system, because in that book, you'll notice they talk about the king as the sum of all the parts. When all the parts come together, that's when you release the king, and the king becomes almost the point of the whole system. And I don't agree with that, because I don't think if you have kingly attributes or not makes you a better or worse man. I think that's just one aspect of who you are. Some people are just artists. They are just amazing creators. And I want them to completely feel fine with having that connection to creativity and not having to force themselves into being one mold like the king. So I separated some of those attributes into the sovereign and the father. And I'll go over the sovereign and then the lover last.
Yeah. Let me say one more thing before you go into the sovereign, because I'm really glad that you said that. And after we go through these archetypes, we'll talk about this some more. But the fact that it gives people permission to embrace and choose the qualities that they feel most resonant with is such an important piece of this work. I know because I mean, we're men, right? What we want to do is be seen as valuable. And when guys don't genuinely feel like I'm a king or I'm a warrior, they feel less than. And if we're introducing tools that should be helpful, we shouldn't be creating a context in which they can feel ashamed. You're not whole unless you can integrate all these archetypes, right? It just perpetuates the same thing. So I just wanted to squeeze that in there because it was so great that you pointed that out.
Yeah, and I think an idea that supports that is just because someone's not in the king role doesn't mean they can't be really good at it.
Right.
They might just say, you know what, my life right now, I'm taking on this other role and I'm perfecting it because that's my path. So they're not less for doing that. And just know they all have different attributes, and we're all unique due to our upbringing, to the culture that we come through, and all these things make us who we are. So we should have a way of connecting to our uniqueness, instead of saying you are or not something. We're not black and white. We're not that easy.
Right. Totally, man. Beautiful. Well, tell us about the sovereign.
So the sovereign is how we connect to organization. It's how we choose to be effective, strategic, how we are diplomatic with people around us. And all of those attributes are about creating harmony, not just within your life, but the world around you. So what choices can you make? When can you make them? How can you deploy them? It's an incredible archetype in conjunction with the others, because like you were saying, you have to know when to turn something on and off. When should I be in my warrior? When should I be in my father archetype? That process of decision is the sovereign archetype. It's really the overseer, the manager of the different parts. And that doesn't mean the manager is better or worse than anyone else involved, right? It's just one of the roles we play.
That's awesome, man. I love that. So what attributes of the sovereign different? Because I heard your definition of sovereign, and I started to hear a little bit of warrior, the way I hold it in there, about strategy. That's what I would normally assign to warrior, is strategy, logic, focus, the guy who's executing the mission.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is there anything that I'm missing about the sovereign there?
Yeah. So think about, I wanted to do some Venn diagrams of this thing so you have the warrior, which is about action, at least in my concept and system. It's about action, getting things done, dedication. Then you have sovereign, which is strategy. Now, where they overlap in the Venn diagram, the middle part is the general, right? So it's about blending of the action and the willpower with the decision making. So I see the warrior as much more the fire, the will, the energy to do the thing, and the sovereign as, okay, when should I do that thing?
So would you say within sovereign, is that also the realm of being a critical thinker and manifesting your own beliefs and direction?
Totally. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. But then you can have strategies, but if you don't do it, which is your warrior, you're completely ineffective. So the two work together so tightly. But yeah, I do see them as slightly different in that way.
Yeah, I like that where they overlap in the general. It's like a super archetype. Do you have overlapping archetypes for all the other ones too?
I don't, but I was talking with a friend where they were saying like, yeah, you should do all these like Venn diagrams of what's in the middle. Like, you know, what is the lover king? Or sovereign? What is the father warrior? You know, and then just pick a pop icon. That'd be fun.
Yeah, because we used to do that a little bit when we were working with the archetypes, because I also love medieval mythology and Lord of the Rings and all that stuff. So, I mean, the good kings were always the ones who were like the retired battle heroes, right? You know, the king was the guy who's a little too old to be out on the battlefield swinging a battle axe, but he still could. And he probably would at some point in the story, right? So I always loved, we would talk about the warrior king, or even speaking about the king as having had a history as a warrior, and was able to now sit and look over and survey everything instead of being focused on executing, you know? So I like that idea of the overlap of the archetypes too, because I think it gives it a little more breadth and freedom too.